Hey, how's it going? So after having a couple of months now to think about the ending of Season 6 of Better Call Saul, where Saul Goodman goes against the parameters of his plea deal of 7.5 years of prison when he instead decides to atone for his crimes and accept full responsibility for everything that he did under Walter White. And of course, as a result of this testimony, he was then sentenced to 86 years in federal prison.
You had him down to 7 years.
Yeah, I did.
$86 years.
86 years. But with good behavior, who knows?
A very intentional play on words here, with Saul Goodman effectively 86ing himself and more or less giving himself a life sentence here in prison, as if he were to serve out this entire prison sentence, he would be 136 years of age. And of course, as of the recording of this video, no known confirmed person in the history of human civilization has ever lived that long, meaning that of course Saul Goodman would die in prison. But of course, as I was thinking about this, I did find myself wondering if it was ever possible in the future that Saul Goodman would get out of federal prison. Now, of course, I am by no means a criminal attorney, and even following a quick Google search of the federal prison system, it was quite complex, and I would definitely have to contact an actual attorney to get an official result on this. But following me stumbling upon the Federal Bureau of Prisons publishing new guidelines for the compassionate release and reduction of sentence program, I did see that it is possible theoretically for elderly non-medical prisoners sentenced for an offense after November 1st, 1987, who are at least 70 years old and who have served at least 30 years of their sentence, are apparently eligible for a compassionate elderly non-medical release. And apparently the result of this program is due to the fact that the elderly prisoners in federal prison are the fastest growing segment of the prison population, largely due to the lengthy mandatory minimum sentences over the last 30 years. Additionally, elderly prisoners are more expensive to incarcerate than younger prisoners, largely because they often have more medical problems that require treatment, medication, and surgery, which all need to be paid for by the federal government. Also, elderly prisoners reoffend at much lower rates than younger prisoners and have fewer disciplinary incidents while incarcerated, on top of the fact that many of these federal prisons lack sufficient medical personnel and resources to address elderly offenders' medical needs within a reasonable period of time, according to the organization FAMM, Families Against Mandatory Minimums, an American nonprofit advocacy organization founded in 1991 to challenge mandatory sentencing laws and advocate for criminal justice reform. So with all of this being said, apparently, just based on this information that we have here, I would take it as though, since Saul Goodman turned 50 years old prior to his sentence in federal prison, theoretically, if we go by this definition in these new guidelines, I could say that theoretically Saul Goodman could be eligible for this non-medical release when he turned 80 years old, as this would mean he meets the criteria of being at least 70 years old, being 80 years old, and having served at least 30 years of his sentence. And as a result of his sentence being this long, this really seems to me to be the only real scenario which Saul Goodman could ever get out of prison while still seeing the light of day as a relatively healthy 80-year-old man in the United States. But yeah, so pretty interesting here at the end of the day. And of course, while I don't think we'll ever see a sort of actual continuation of this displayed to us on screen, it is actually kind of interesting to know that potentially in his old age, Saul Goodman could get out of prison as a result of these non-medical releases that older prisoners qualify for. But I don't know, with Saul, of course, being able to get out of prison after 7.5 years, and in his plea deal hearing, he essentially confesses to all of his crimes and states that he almost deserves to go to prison and wants to go to prison. Of course, with the ending of Better Call Saul displaying this to us as well, with Saul almost being displayed as being someone who is more comfortable in prison than out of prison. So just a lot of food for thought here in respect to how the ending of Better Call Saul was written. And in my humble opinion, 86 years in prison for any type of crime seems truly, maybe even over the top in many respects, at least when you compare it to countries such as Norway, which sets the longest prison sentence maximum at 21 years. Of course, this is just a totally different sort of ideology compared to how prison is viewed in the United States. And of course, even in Norway, there are exceptions for egregious crimes where people will not be let out even after those 21 years. But again, this is an extremely philosophical debate in respect to the punitive nature of prison as opposed to truly trying to rehabilitate people. But again, at the same time, there are humans who do undertake egregiously heinous violence, horrible crimes as well, and maybe you really can't rehabilitate every single person, and some of these punitive crimes are truly deterrents for other people to do things of this nature. But again, this is truly a discussion out of my pay grade and is an extremely complex discussion that is currently going on all over the world in respect to the people who are currently incarcerated. But yeah, without trying to get too philosophical here, that's pretty much all I got for you on this video. Just something I kind of found pretty interesting where, you know, theoretically, Saul Goodman could get a non-medical, elderly, compassionate release and get out at 80 years of age, which, as we do remember, was the sort of initial parameters of his plea deal that was first offered to him before he spun his involvement in Walter White's meth empire as a victim rather than a beneficiary, where 30 years was the initial sentence. This, of course, would absolutely guarantee his release at 80 years of age, while this non-medical elderly release is just theoretical, and even if Saul Goodman is eligible for this release, it does not have to be granted to him at this age. But anyway, yeah, just kind of curious to see what other people are thinking in respect to this theoretical release of Saul Goodman, as well as what people are thinking about in the months following the ending of Season 6 of Better Call Saul. So definitely let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, my name is Anton Jackson. Thank you again so much for watching this video.